Good evening, and welcome to Halftime on the Hudson. Tonight, I will be your host, Jeff Drajin, and beside me, co-host
Alyssa Ramondi.
Tonight, we'll be talking about topics that include the conclusion of the NBA Finals, the MLB postseason, and of course, the beginning of the NFL season. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Regarding the NFL, there are 4 teams that stand on top of the mountain, and that would include Seattle Seahawks, Kansas City Chiefs, Green Bay Packers, and the Buffalo Bills, who are all 4-0 and undefeated. Also, with the exception of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Tennessee Titans, who are also undefeated, however, they are only 3-0. And of course, it is never too early to start looking at MVP candidates. That would include quarterbacks such as Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and of course, Russell Wilson. So looking at some stats and digging a little deeper, Patrick Mahomes currently has 1,134 passing yards, 11 touchdowns to his name, and 67.3 completion percentage. Wilson is looking at 1,285 yards, 16 TDs, and 75.2 completion percentage. And Allen, which is very impressive, 1,326 yards, 12 TDs, and a 71% completion percentage. So Alyssa, looking at these, who is a top pick for you looking at early MVP candidates?
I would have to say Patrick Mahomes because coming off the Super Bowl win from last season, I think he's run for more. And they're looking pretty good this year. I think they have a really solid chance.
Of course. I have to say, I'm really impressed by Josh Allen. I mean, he's honestly a dark horse in this situation. I mean, coming in from last season, no one really would have said maybe he's going to be the MVP. But you're looking at his stats, and most of his stats are better than his competitors, such as Wilson, maybe an Aaron Rodgers, or Patrick Mahomes. I'm really impressed with Allen. And he's at the helm of this 4-0 Buffalo Bills team. My bet is on Josh Allen, and that might be a hot take. So you're going with Mahomes.
I'm going with Mahomes, but I see your point because
Okay.
I honestly didn't even realize how well he's doing with his stats. They're really up there, I have to say.
He has over 1,300 passing yards already through 4 games, 12 TDs, which isn't the most. You have people like Russell Wilson, 4 more with 16. But he has a 71% passing completion percentage. I think it's really well. He has strong numbers.
Definitely has a great shot for
That'll
sure.
be something to watch, as the season progresses.
The goalie for the New York Rangers, Henrik Lundqvist, was bought out of his contract. He played for 15 years on the team. He will receive the remaining $5.5 million he was owed. With the Rangers, he won the Vezina Trophy after the 2011-2012 season, and he made 129 straight postseason starts through Game 2 against the Hurricanes. He now is a free agent, and his future is unknown.
When we were talking about the legendary goalie, King Henrik, for the New York Rangers, he had 459 regular season wins. That's amazing. His GAA was a 2.43, and his save average was a .918%. He was the Rangers' leader in wins, shutouts, and games played. Over his 15-year career, he had 887 games played, and this was all under the New York Rangers. His loyalty to New York and the state is unparalleled. It's like Derek Jeter with the Yankees. He turned the tide for the Rangers in 05-06, his rookie season. They hadn't made the playoffs for 9 years prior. And honestly, Alyssa, I have actually met the guy after a Rangers game in Madison Square Garden, and he is such a humble guy.
Wow.
It's amazing. He obviously had a wonderful game. I was there, I sat right on the boards, and he's just such a humble and down-to-earth guy.
Wow.
I'm really sad to see him go. I have to be honest with you.
Me too. That's definitely a great experience that you were able to meet him, and he was so humble.
Of course. I met King Henrik, such a legend. It's amazing.
It truly is amazing.
Okay. So now let's get into some NBA talk. Currently, the Lakers lead the NBA Finals 3-1. So what I would like to know is if King James wins his 4th, would he be considered the GOAT? And if so, does that put him on the Lakers' highly valued Mount Rushmore? To give you some background, Jordan is 6 for 6 in the Finals. That's back-to-back three-peats he had. And never once he let a series get to Game 7. For 7 consecutive years while playing in the NBA, he averaged 30-plus points. His mental toughness is unparalleled. The closest thing you can get is Kobe Bryant and that Black Mamba mentality. He's a better scorer than LeBron, better defense, 5 MVPs, 6 Finals MVPs. Every time he was in the Finals, he was the most valuable player. And among that, he had 10 scoring titles over his long seasons. LeBron has 10 finals appearances, including this one, but he only has 3 wins in the finals, and he's on the cusp of his 4th. But even if he wins his 4th, he will still have a losing percentage at around 40%. He has definitely gone up against his fair share of super teams and wonderful competition that would include the Golden State Warriors, the likes of Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry. People would say that he's a better all-around player because he's a better passer, he's a better rebounder, but that's definitely attributed to his stature of being 250, 6'8", or 6'9", and being able to run the floor. He has 4 MVPs, 3 finals MVPs, and a scoring title. So Alyssa, when we're talking about this, how do you feel about comparing the GOAT, Michael Jordan, his airness, versus King James? What is your thought process on this?
I feel like Michael Jordan overall is just dominant on the court as a player, and he has more finals championship wins than LeBron James. I just feel like Jordan is the overall dominant player, like I said.
It's very tough, and I'm going to keep my Chicago Bulls bias out of this. I am a Bulls fan, but I promise I'll put that aside. And you know what? Whenever you're doing these discussions, whether it be Kobe and Jordan, as we're doing now, Jordan and LeBron, it's tough because they played in different eras. And we could talk about this all day, and the truth is we would never know. So when you're looking at whether Jordan had to go up against the bad boy Pistons in the late 80s and the 90s, or talking about what was harder, LeBron going up against arguably the best team of all time in the Warriors, it's very tough. Rules were different, fouls were different. We can never know, but I have to tend to agree with you that Jordan is the better overall player, dominant scorer, that mental toughness. He willed his teams to championships. And he was in Chicago his whole career. He didn't leave Cleveland like LeBron did and go to Miami and go to the Lakers or back to Cleveland. He won with his team. He willed the team that he had to a championship. So I'm going to agree with you. I think that LeBron is not as good as Jordan, even if he wins his 4th final against the Miami Heat. But then that brings us to the topic. If we're talking about Lakers Mount Rushmore, Kobe is a 5-time champion with the Lakers. Magic Johnson is also a 5-time champion. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 5-time champion for the Lakers. Jerry West is a 1-time champion, but let's not forget he is the NBA logo, one of the greatest point guards of all time. Wilt Chamberlain, 2-time champ. And Shaq, as you all know, 3-time champ when he played with Kobe, and arguably the most physically dominant player ever to set foot on a basketball floor. So given this information, Alyssa, what would you say about the addition of a LeBron James to a Lakers Mount Rushmore?
I feel like there's definitely potential for him to be on the Mount Rushmore, but it really just depends on how this NBA final pans out, in my opinion. I feel like he's up against many strong, dominant players on the Mount Rushmore already, and I feel like it depends on how this final pans out. I think there's potential, but the other players really are strong.
Of course. I mean, you're talking about NBA legends here. We're not just talking about any other players. And of course, there are only 4 spots to be taken. And right now, for me, Kobe is one of those. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, and I'm going to go ahead and put Jerry West on there. He's the NBA logo. Wilt and Shaq, they're amazing. And to keep them off of a list of greatness, you're saying a lot there. You're saying a lot. And even putting LeBron in that conversation, he is a handful of one of the best players to ever play. Probably top 5 on most people's list, top 5 on my list. But when we're talking about playing for the Los Angeles Lakers, LeBron's going to need to prove himself a little bit. And I think winning a championship over the Heat led by Jimmy Butler and phenomenon Tyler Herro, I don't think he's going to do it. I think it's going to take a three-peat, at least a three-peat with him and Anthony Davis for him to be considered and put on that Mount Rushmore above all of those players. So now without further ado, let's get into Mark Cuban and what he's been tweeting.
So Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, was arguing with Senator Ted Cruz on Twitter over the NBA ratings. This year's NBA Finals are the least watched in history. Cuban tweeted, "Not surprising. Personally speaking, this is the first time in years that I haven't watched a single game on the NBA Finals. Got Woke, Go Woke, Go Broke, followed by a U.S. Senator with 3 NBA teams in his state employing thousands of people, and he is rooting for their businesses to do poorly, he wrote. This is who you are at Ted Cruz. Every minute of your life, this is exactly who you are. Ted Cruz responded back with, I love Houston Rockets and have rooted for them my entire life. I happily cheer for the Spurs and Mavericks against any non-Texas team, but the NBA is engaged in a coherent effort to, 1, result their fans, and 2, turn every game into a left-wing political lecture. That's dumb. Game 2 was watched by roughly 6 million people, which is a drop from last year's Game 2. And this year's Game 1 had roughly 7 million views. Overall, there seems to be no definitive reason on why the ratings are so low this year. Jeff, do you have any idea why?
When you're looking at this, I think a couple things can be mentioned. Obviously, given the nature of the world right now with the coronavirus, COVID-19, and normally you're looking at a June and really beginning of summer, end of spring NBA championship. But currently, you're seeing that we're playing it obviously now. So maybe a Yankees fan is going to say, hey, I don't care enough about watching LeBron play the Heat. They're not my teams. I'm going to watch an MLB postseason game. So you're definitely dealing with that. So a couple of viewers may be jumping ship, and they would normally tune into the NBA Finals in June to see what's happening. But now, when you're looking at a baseball point of view, they don't want to, and they're going to pick baseball over that. Do you think there are any other contributing factors to this?
Honestly, what you said was what I thought first. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the NBA Finals are usually in June, and baseball has been a dominant sport, and people might just be choosing to watch the postseason rather than the NBA.
Of course. I think that is definitely a likely reason for that. Well, that concludes our news section, and stick around for the Red Fox Rapid Fire game show with Connor and Zach. Thank you for watching. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the second segment of Halftime on the Hudson, Prove Your Point. How this is going to work, we have contestants Zach and Connor. They're going to be given a topic. They're going to have 1 minute each on the clock to prove their point. First topic, give me your World Series predictions. Zach, prove your point.
All right, so my World Series prediction, I have the Tampa Bay Rays coming out of the American League and the Los Angeles Dodgers coming out of the National League, and I'm going for a little upset special. I like the Tampa Bay Rays to beat the Los Angeles Dodgers. I love the pitching staff of the Tampa Bay Rays. They got 3 number 1 aces in Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, and Charlie Morton. They have a bullpen and a rotating depth that they throw new people in the closer spots every day. They have Pete Fairbanks, who came in and shut it down yesterday, and then their lineup is deep from 1 to 9. A couple weeks ago, they threw an entire lefty lineup out on the right-handed pitching staff of the Mets, so they can do many different things. And I like the depth that they have. Randy Arozarena, young star, blossoming right now, and I think they're too tough to beat with the depth that they have on their team.
Okay, your minute is up. Please go ahead, prove your point.
And with mine, I'm also going to go with the Dodgers and the Rays, but I'm going to have the Dodgers winning it all. Like you said, I think the Rays are going to get there because of their pitching. They got Blake Snell, Glasnow, and Charlie Morton. And I think they have the pitching to silence anybody they play in the American League, as we've seen them do with the Yankees. But as far as the Dodgers go, they have the experience. They've been there before. And, you know, throughout this playoffs, Muncy, Bellinger, and Seager, they're not even hot. They have a combined 5 hits. So I think once their bats start to get going, they can really turn it up, and I think their pitching staff's better. They got Buehler, they got Kershaw. They've all pitched in World Series games before. So, and they added an MVP in Mookie Betts this year. So they had the best ERA. They were second best in opponents' home runs. They hit the most home runs. They scored the most runs, and they had the highest slugging percentage. So I'm going to go with experience here with the Dodgers winning it all.
Gentlemen, you guys made some great points. I have to go with my gut. I'm taking experience and pitching. I'm going to go with the Dodgers as well. I mean, you're looking at all that experience, especially Clayton Kershaw, and like you said, bringing in an MVP. My pick is the Dodgers. 1 to Connor, none to Zach. Gentlemen, college football playoff predictions. Connor, we're going to go to you first. Prove your point. A minute is on the clock.
All right, at number 1, I have Clemson because they have the experience, just like the Dodgers do. But I think Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne are they're legit this year, and they pretty much have a cakewalk through the regular season. There is one game that I'm nervous about. They play Notre Dame, but I think they should beat them, and I can see them cruising to the number 1 spot. At 2, I'm going to go with Bama. You know, Mac Jones, he's proven that he can lead an offense, and they're bringing back Jalen Waddle, who's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft, and they got Najee Harris in the backfield, and their defense is solid, and Nick Saban's one of the best coaches in the game, so I think he'll get them in the number 2 spot. And at number 3, I have Ohio State. I think Ryan Day is going to have their team ready. You know, they've been practicing for a while now, and Justin Fields, he was a Heisman candidate last year, 3,200 passing yards, 41 passing touchdowns, and 10 rushing touchdowns. And they've won the last 3 Big Ten titles, so there's no reason why they shouldn't be there. And at 4, a surprise pick, I got Florida. Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts are enough to lead them there.
Connor, that is your minute. Thank you. Zach, we're going over to you. Prove your point. A minute's on the clock.
I'm going to have my number 1 team be Alabama. Like he's touched on, Mac Jones, he's a Heisman candidate. Jalen Waddle's back. He's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. They got Najee Harris at the backfield, and they also have Devontae Smith out wide, too. He's going to be another probably first-round pick, and for the second year in a row, Alabama's going to have the first 2 wide receivers taken off the board. At number 2, I have Clemson. Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, that's the number 1 quarterback running back duo in America. A little worried about their depth at receiver and stuff, but they're Clemson and they dominate every year, so there's no reason to doubt them. At number 3, I'm going to go with Georgia. A little surprise here. Georgia has the number 1 ranked defense in America right now, and every year Georgia comes out with that defense, and it's been proven the only way you stop these high-powered offenses with a good defense. And Georgia, the last 2 times they've played Alabama, they've blown their leads, but their defense has been strong, and it's been low-scoring games. So if they can keep them low-scoring, they'll be in it. And I'm going to go a little surprise at number 4 with Michigan. This is 2020, unpredictable year. If Michigan's ever going to beat Ohio State, it's going to be this year. They got Joe Milton, the star young quarterback in. I think it's Michigan's year.
That is your minute. Gentlemen, you've given me a lot to think about. Zach, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go with Connor on this one. I believe that Clemson, Bama, Ohio State, and your last one being Florida. I think they have what it takes. I like that. And you touched on this as well, the duo between Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. But I have to say, I think Bama has what it takes. Roll Tide, roll. I know you put them number 1. But I'm going to put them number 2 as well. And I trust in Fields. I know they haven't played a game yet, unlike these other college teams. But I believe he has the experience. Former Heisman in contention. I'm going with you, Zach. Connor. So that concludes our segment for Prove Your Point. We are now joined with journalist Matt Spiro of the Marist Center Field. So Matt, please tell me a little bit about, I heard Jamel Hill is here talking to some sports comm people.
Yes, she
was.
Right? Yes, Jamel Hill, former ESPN employee, now works for The Atlantic. She was here last week talking to Marist sports comm students. She gave a lot of advice to students, opened up a Q&A afterwards, talked about her experience as a black woman and working in sports media, the struggles that come along with that. You can check the piece out by Greta Stuckey on Center Field. There's a lot of good tidbits in there, a lot of good things that she said, and overall it's a very positive experience, not only for the students, professors in attendance, but anyone who wants to hear a lot of the things that she said. I recommend checking the piece out.
That's awesome to have someone, so distinguished in the industry come, talk to you guys. That's definitely really great. So moving on from that, Matt, tell me a little bit of what's going on with Marist Sports.
Well, as you know, Marist Sports are not being played right now, but we do have a great story that came out a couple weeks ago. Alan Gavelanes of the men's soccer team, he's a senior. He was recently named to the MAC 40th anniversary team. He was the freshman of the year when he played 3 years ago. He's been first team All-MAC every single year. He was a very, very talented player in high school. Suffered ankle injury his senior year. Marist was one of the only D1 schools that extended their recruitment to him when a lot of schools kind of rescinded that offer. Coach Matt Vigiano brought him here, and it's kind of panned out since. And to be named to the MAC 40th anniversary team while he's still playing, he's only played 3 years. It's pretty impressive, and even though there's no sports going on right now, we don't have a soccer season in the fall. It's nice to have that feel-good story right now for Marist Sports.
That definitely is true. And you know what? It really does stink because, I'm a transfer. It's my first time on campus. I'm not getting to experience Marist sports. It definitely does suck a little bit. And I hate to say that, but, from the fans' point of view and the students, we really want to be able to experience that. And it's unfortunate that we're not able to due to these circumstances. Man.
Yeah, it's tough. Honestly, there's a great piece about that as well. You check out by Molly Rotondo, who plays for the Marist women's soccer team. She wrote a piece talking about just a lot of what's going on nowadays. We don't have sports. Athletes trying to keep up their work ethic, knowing that currently there's nothing to play for. It's tough. Us as fans, obviously, we want it. We want sports more than anything, but we kind of forget about the athletes as well. I mean, they treat this like their job. It's something they do every day. They've been accustomed to it for so long, and to just kind of have it taken away all of a sudden, it sucks. So that's a great piece to check out. Goes into a lot of detail. A lot of different athletes spoke, gave their own perspective of what's going on. It's definitely something that I was a big fan of reading of. From my own perspective, I love sports my whole life. I'm sure a lot of people watching this have. It sucks. We use sports kind of as our escape from a lot of other things. It's something that's bigger than ourselves, something that we could be a part of even from our couch, watching on our phone. We play fantasy sports, feel like a GM. I mean, we love sports more than anything, and it sucks not having it. It really does. So coming from me, I'm speaking for a lot of people here. Sports, we love you, we miss you, and we can't wait for you to come back in full.
I definitely second that. Cannot wait till sports is back. That concludes our segment with journalist Matt Spiro from the center field. Matt, I want to thank you for coming to the studio tonight.
Thank you very
and
much.
helping us with Halftime on the Hudson.
That means a lot. If you want to check out any more great pieces, go to the Marist Center Field presented by the Center of Sports Communication. It's a great website. There's a lot of good things coming out of it, all student produced, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you, Matt. Well, that concludes our show. I've been your host, Jeff Drajin, and you've been watching Halftime on the Hudson. We'll see you next time. Thank you.